The Middle East is one of the most strategically important and politically volatile regions in the world. For decades, this region has been the center of power struggles, ideological conflicts, and military tensions that have shaped global politics. But among all these conflicts, one rivalry has remained particularly dangerous and unpredictable: the rivalry between Iran, Israel, and the United States. This conflict is not just about borders or politics. It is about ideology, power, influence, and survival. To understand why these countries stand on opposite sides today, we must go back in time to the year 1979. Before 1979, Iran was ruled by Shah Mohammad Reza Pahlavi. The Shah maintained strong relations with the United States and Western nations. Iran at that time was considered one of America's most reliable allies in the Middle East. The country was modernizing rapidly, and Western influence was visible in many aspects of society. But inside Iran, dissatisfaction was growing. Many people believed the Shah's government was corrupt, authoritarian, and too closely tied to foreign powers. Anger eventually led to one of the most dramatic revolutions of the 20th century. In 1979, millions of Iranians took to the streets protesting against the Shah. The protests grew larger and more powerful until the monarchy collapsed. The Shah fled the country, and a new political system was established known as the Islamic Republic of Iran. This new government was led by Ayatollah Ruhollah Khomeini, whose ideologies strongly opposed Western influence, especially the United States and Israel. From that moment, the political direction of Iran changed completely. The United States, which had once been Iran's closest ally, became its primary enemy. At the same time, Iran openly declared opposition to Israel, calling it an illegitimate state in the Middle East. This announcement created deep hostility between the two countries and marked the beginning of a long and complicated conflict. While diplomatic relations between Iran and the United States collapsed, Israel began to watch Iran with increasing concern. Israel is a small country surrounded by many adversaries, and its national security strategy focuses heavily on preventing hostile powers from gaining military advantages, especially nuclear weapons. In the years that followed, Iran began developing a nuclear program. Iran insisted that its nuclear activities were peaceful, designed to generate electricity and advance scientific research. But many Western governments, including Israel and the United States, feared that the program might secretly be aimed at building nuclear weapons. For Israel, the possibility of a nuclear-armed Iran represented an existential threat. As a result, Israeli intelligence agencies reportedly launched covert operations intended to slow down Iran's nuclear progress. These operations were never officially acknowledged, but numerous reports suggested sabotage, cyber attacks, and even targeted assassinations of nuclear scientists. One of the most famous incidents occurred when a sophisticated cyber weapon known as Stuxnet infiltrated Iranian nuclear facilities, damaging critical centrifuges used for uranium enrichment. The attack demonstrated a new form of warfare, cyber warfare, where invisible digital weapons could cause real-world destruction. At the same time, several Iranian scientists connected to the nuclear program were assassinated in mysterious attacks on the streets of Tehran. These events intensified tensions and pushed the rivalry further into what analysts began calling a shadow war. Shadow war is a conflict fought secretly without open declaration of war, where both sides attempt to weaken each other through intelligence operations, sabotage, and proxy forces. As the shadow war continued, Iran expanded its influence across the Middle East. Iran began supporting various political movements and armed groups in different countries. One of the most significant alliances developed with Hezbollah in Lebanon. Hezbollah became a powerful political and military organization with strong backing from Iran. For Israel, Hezbollah represented a major security threat, particularly along its northern border. In addition, Iran maintained close relations with Hamas in the Gaza Strip. Hamas controlled Gaza and had fought multiple conflicts with Israel over the years. From Israel's perspective, Iran was building a network of allied groups surrounding Israeli territory, creating what many Israeli officials described as a ring of fire. These developments increased fears that any local conflict could escalate into a larger regional confrontation. At the same time, the United States maintained strong military and diplomatic support for Israel. American administrations repeatedly warned Iran against pursuing nuclear weapons and imposed severe economic sanctions designed to pressure the Iranian government. Sanctions targeted Iran's banking sector, oil exports, and international trade, significantly impacting the Iranian economy. Despite this pressure, Iran continued advancing its missile technology and expanding its regional alliances. The situation reached a turning point in 2015 when a major international agreement was signed known as the Joint Comprehension, or JCPOA. This deal was negotiated between Iran and several world powers, including the United States, United Kingdom, France, Germany, Russia, and China. Agreement required Iran to limit its nuclear activities, allow international inspections, and reduce its uranium enrichment in exchange for relief from economic sanctions. For a brief period, the deal appeared to reduce tensions and create hope for a more stable future. However, political changes in Washington altered the situation dramatically. When the United States withdrew from the nuclear agreement and reimposed strict sanctions, tensions began rising again. Iran responded by gradually increasing its uranium enrichment levels and reducing its cooperation with international inspectors. Israel warned that it would never allow Iran to become a nuclear weapons state, and that military action could be necessary if diplomacy failed. As diplomatic negotiations stalled, military tensions increased across the region. Israeli air forces conducted strikes against Iranian-linked targets in Syria, attempting to prevent Iran from establishing permanent military bases in Israeli territory. Meanwhile, Iran continued developing advanced missiles, drones, and military capabilities. These technologies were increasingly used by Iranian allied groups throughout the region, including in Iraq, Syria, Lebanon, and Yemen. Each new incident raised fears that the shadow war might transform into an open military confrontation. Analysts warned that if Iran and Israel entered direct war, the consequences could extend far beyond the Middle East. The region holds some of the world's most important oil routes, including the Strait of Hormuz, through which a significant portion of global energy supplies passes. Any disruption to this corridor could trigger worldwide economic instability, energy shortages, and rising prices. Additionally, the involvement of the United States as Israel's key ally means that a regional conflict could rapidly draw in other global powers. The risk of escalation remains one of the most serious concerns for international security experts. History has shown that many large wars begin not with planned decisions, but with unexpected incidents, misunderstandings, or sudden escalations. In a region already filled with competing interests, alliances, and historical grievances, even a single miscalculation could ignite a much larger crisis. And so the rivalry between Iran, Israel, and the United States continues to shape the strategic landscape of the Middle East. The world watches closely, hoping that diplomacy, caution, and restraint will prevent this conflict from turning into something far more dangerous. Because if these tensions ever cross the line into full-scale war, the consequences may not remain limited to one region. Could reshape global politics, economics, and security for years to come. As tensions between Iran, Israel, and the United States continued to grow, the Middle East slowly entered one of the most uncertain periods in modern history. Every year brought new confrontations, new warnings, and new military developments that pushed the region closer to open conflict. What had once been a hidden shadow war was gradually transforming into a visible strategic confrontation played out through missiles, drones, cyber attacks, and military alliances. One of the major turning points in this growing confrontation was the rapid development of modern drone warfare. Iran invested heavily in unmanned aerial systems, building fleets of drones capable of traveling long distances and carrying explosive payloads. These drones became an important part of Iran's military doctrine because they allowed Iran and its allies to project power across the region without relying on traditional air forces. At the same time, Israel continued strengthening its already advanced defense systems. The Israeli military developed sophisticated technologies, such as the Iron Dome missile defense system designed to intercept rockets and short-range missiles before they could reach civilian areas. These defensive systems were tested repeatedly during periods of conflict, particularly during rocket attacks from Gaza and tensions along the Lebanese border. The strategic competition between these technologies created a new kind of military balance where offensive drone and missile systems were constantly being matched by new layers of defensive protection. As both sides improved their capabilities, the possibility of miscalculation increased. Military analysts frequently warned that a single incident could rapidly escalate beyond control. For example, an attack on a military base or a strike that caused large civilian casualties could force governments to respond more aggressively than originally planned. Such responses could trigger retaliation, which would then lead to counter-retaliation, creating a chain reaction of escalating violence. This pattern has appeared many times in history, where regional conflicts spiral into much larger wars. Another important factor shaping this conflict is geography. The Middle East contains several strategic waterways that are essential for global trade, especially the Strait of Hormuz. This narrow passage connects the Persian Gulf to the wider ocean and is one of the most important oil transportation routes in the world. A significant percentage of global oil shipments pass through this corridor every single day. If a large-scale conflict were to erupt in this region, the Strait of Hormuz could become a major flashpoint. Any disruption to shipping lanes could immediately impact global energy markets, raising fuel prices and creating economic instability far beyond the Middle East. This is one reason why many global powers monitor the situation so closely. The conflict does not only affect the countries directly involved, but also the entire international economic system. At the same time, the political landscape inside the Middle East continues to evolve. New alliances are forming while old rivalries shift and adapt. Some countries in the region have strengthened security cooperation with Israel, while others maintain closer ties with Iran. These overlapping alliances create a complicated network of relationships where diplomatic decisions in one country can influence the strategic calculations of many others. For the United States, the situation involves balancing several priorities, including supporting Israel, maintaining regional stability, protecting global energy supplies, and preventing the spread of nuclear weapons. These goals often require careful diplomatic negotiations combined with military deterrence strategies designed to discourage escalation. For Iran, the strategic objective has often been described as resisting foreign pressure while expanding regional influence. Iranian leaders frequently emphasize national sovereignty and independence from Western control, while simultaneously building relationships with political movements and governments across the region. Approach has allowed Iran to maintain influence in several neighboring countries, creating a strategic environment that is both complex and unpredictable. Meanwhile, Israel continues to focus on preventing any hostile power from obtaining weapons that could threaten its existence. Israeli security doctrine has historically emphasized early detection, rapid response, and maintaining technological superiority in intelligence, surveillance, and defense systems. This approach has led to numerous preemptive operations designed to disrupt perceived threats before they fully develop. These operations sometimes occur far beyond Israel's borders, illustrating the global reach of modern intelligence and military capabilities. As the years pass, technological advancements continue to reshape the nature of conflict. Artificial intelligence, cyber warfare, satellite surveillance, and autonomous weapon systems are increasingly integrated into military planning. Realistic voice clones. These tools provide governments with new ways to gather information, disrupt enemy infrastructure, and respond to emerging threats without necessarily deploying large traditional armies on the ground. However, these same technologies also create new risks because cyber attacks or automated systems could potentially trigger unintended consequences if misinterpreted or incorrectly attributed. In such a highly interconnected strategic environment, communication becomes extremely important. Diplomatic channels, crisis hotlines, and international negotiations often serve as mechanisms to reduce misunderstandings and prevent accidental escalation. Many experts argue that maintaining these communication pathways is essential for global security because the absence of dialogue increases the likelihood of dangerous miscalculations. The international community therefore continues encouraging diplomatic engagement even during periods of intense political disagreement. At the same time, public opinion within different countries also influences decision-making. Governments must balance national security concerns with domestic political pressures, economic realities, and international reputation. Public debates, media coverage, and political leadership all shape how each country responds to events unfolding in the region. This complex mixture of military strategy, diplomacy, economic pressure, and political decision-making means that the future of the Iran-Israel-United States relationship remains uncertain. Analysts believe that continued diplomatic negotiations could eventually produce new agreements that limit nuclear activities, reduce military tensions, and create frameworks for regional cooperation. Other analysts remain more skeptical, arguing that ideological differences, strategic competition, and historical mistrust may continue driving confrontation for many years to come. What remains clear, however, is that the outcome of this rivalry will have consequences far beyond the borders of any single nation. The Middle East has long served as a crossroads of civilizations, trade routes, and geopolitical influence. Whenever tensions rise in this region, the entire world feels the impact in energy markets, global security, alliances, and international diplomacy. The story of Iran-Israel and the United States therefore represents more than just a regional dispute. It reflects a broader struggle over power, influence, and the future balance of international relations. Whether this story eventually leads toward renewed diplomacy, cautious coexistence, or deeper confrontation will depend on the decisions made by leaders in the years ahead. History reminds us that conflicts shaped by ideology, security fears, and strategic competition rarely follow simple paths. Evolve through unexpected events, shifting alliances, technological change, and human decision-making. Because of this uncertainty, the world continues watching the Middle East, carefully aware that developments in this region can direction of global history for decades to come.